I was kind of wondering if you could kind of touch over that change that happened between, I think it was before 1.26, there was a slight change that happened on the view elements. Am I too vague? You kind of know what I'm saying?
So something changed in the view inspector?
Yeah, in the inspector, if you're creating a view, Marco, if you go into one of the elements, like into the view element, um, yeah, there we go. If you go to, I think if you go on the right side, the inspector, there was, if there's some elements that are added on the right side, a list of the root of it. I did this like last week, so the question still kind of, I can't really. Yeah, I think if you go in there in that view model on the right side, the inspector, there's you could add, there's like some little radio buttons that show up on the right side, and I was kind of
Yeah,
wondering.
hold on. Let me add it. Let me
Kind of
add
go.
it.
You know what I'm talking about, Marco?
I don't know yet, but
Okay.
I'm gonna
Have
link
you
this
played with
up.
the newer version of uFrame, Marco, in this last week or so?
I just downloaded the most recent.
Oh,
That was.
okay. I'm not sure if you noticed that feature change, or the workflow, I should say, change, I guess.
I'm gonna add this
I'm
to.
completely lost.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, no,
Okay.
it probably did. I just can't recall
I have.
Yeah.
what you're.
There was a slight change, I think. So at least maybe I didn't notice it before, but
Let me do this.
there's a selection of on the right side in the inspector when you go into one of the views. You just the inspector shows some radio buttons on the left side with some of the actual. I think they're if you go in if you go to the element. What do you
Is
call
it
it?
in the diagram builder you're talking
Yeah,
about?
I think it's on the diagram builder. Yeah, if you traverse through that, I could barely see it though. That's the thing. Double click that. I think that because I think that's.
I don't. You can't
Oh,
double
when you
click the
double,
view.
yeah, you can.
Yeah, you
I,
can double click that.
You can't
I
see
think
it
you
right
can.
now because your
Yeah,
element screen's in the way. It jumps to one in the scene.
and if you
uh,
right or if you hit the plus, I think there's a another
you're talking about the
inspector change, right?
behaviors. You're talking about behaviors.
Yeah, I think so I don't remember ever seeing the behaviors on the right and the inspector changed a little bit. It wouldn't let me type something in there. It was like it was a selection or something like that. So I
You're
think it's
talking
probably.
about. You're talking about behaviors. So like if you go into the UB
Yeah.
behavior, is this what you're talking about
Yeah.
here?
Normally, if there was some um, what was it?
Mike is gonna have to explain UB.
Not properties, but the thing below the properties, the action.
The actions. Let me see here.
I'm trying. I'm actually out of town right now, so I don't really have my workstation with me right now. So
Gotcha.
and I can't remember and I can't read the screen on. I could barely like see. Yeah, if so, those
I think I have my U behaviors plugin turned off. Yeah, there it is.
Okay.
Let me turn it back on. All right, so
I think it's the behaviors when you hit the plus dialog. I didn't remember seeing that before. I think there was a change in the inspector or something like that. Like before I was able to type something in, but now you select it with a radio button or something like that of the commands and in the view on the element inspector. Or,
oh,
yeah.
I think you're not talking about U behaviors. You're talking about whenever you run it. Let me fix this guy real quick so I can actually. I've been hacking away at some automagical repository stuff for the 1.3 in this project. So I'm going to comment all this out real quick.
So I'm just thinking I'm just going to make a little shooter game real quick. Nothing super cool. Why is that? What the hell is that? A green blob that was showing up. That was weird. I've seen that before.
I have no idea what all I'm going to have to change with this, but hopefully not much.
Does anybody else hate this giant camera gizmo that's in the middle of my screen?
Oh yeah, I know. I have that too. Yeah.
I don't really mean. I adjusted smaller every single time, but
Yeah,
okay.
pretty
So
much turn it off.
Blocking the screen share.
so I think I'm just gonna show off like how I use uFrame and GUI together because it's pretty much what I use it with most. Is hooking. I do a lot of our UI development and for our games, and I leave the more complicated stuff to the real programmers. I'm kidding, but I do a lot of our UI design and UI development, and so one thing that I find myself doing most is trying to figure out different ways for NGUI to interact. Am I the only one that uses Steve? I know you use NGUI.
Yeah, I use NGUI. Yeah.
Everybody here use NGUI or?
Yeah, we all use it.
Yep.
On this side.
Okay, so yeah, so I guess that would be beneficial. I downloaded just this. I mean, I had purchased it before. It's this mobile cartoon GUI pack. So these are pretty much going to be pre-built, assets that I'm working with. And I'm going to start off by kind of just creating a panel here. Let me get some things set up. So,
And just so you know, there is a tutorial on this on our website too.
yeah, Micah did a pretty good tutorial on how to.
It was very, very basic and very minimal. Just to get the point across.
That tutorial was very helpful.
Good. My other ones, and just for the record, the ones for 1.0 were done in about 10 hours before the 24-hour asset sale went on, and I was very tired.
You know what? I really enjoyed those tutorials because they reminded me a lot of You Suck at Photoshop.
I don't know if I've ever seen that.
You should watch it. Excellent web series.
There. Actually, here, and then we'll just go call this one game, and then we'll create something to hold some enemies here. So create empty job.
One of the important things that I was going to talk to you guys about too is talk just kind of like about the workflow of uFrame a little bit farther. I know Marco probably will go into a lot of that right now, but kind of how I approach not just like GUI stuff, but actually building out something from scratch, like kind of like where my head goes and how I decide what goes where and stuff like that. That part seems to be pretty important to most people, and what most people seem to have a struggle with. But I do have a set, process in my mind when I'm thinking, hey, I've got this property. How do I need to access it, and where do I need to put it? That seems to be the biggest misunderstanding about uFrame. So I'm going to go into a lot about that if you guys are interested in that aspect of uFrame.
Yeah, definitely. That'd be great.
Yeah, go for it.
But I'll let Marco go for now.
Yeah, I'm not really talking, but I think you should explain more about that because I have a little bit of setup here that I'm kind of doing. Well, I guess I could explain my setup stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm figured that I'm just gonna make a simple game where I have a player and I have maybe some enemies that come out, and the enemies will just constantly come out at my player, kind of like a side scroller, I guess you could say. But and then I'll have my player, and you can make him move up or down, and my player is going to have health. So I've given him a health property, and every time you kill an enemy, you're going to get an increase in score. So I think that should be fine for the scope of what I want to do. I don't want to get too big and then be like, ah! But this may even be too much, but I'm hoping that you guys could like take something from what I'm doing and go, oh, this is pretty cool. So in my UI root, so I'm going to do everything in NGUI. Now, I know you can do all of this stuff with the new Unity 2D sprite system, but I'm just going to do it purely NGUI. So the whole game is going to be using NGUI. So I've created kind of a container for my game, and then I'm going to have some enemies, right? So what I really am missing here is my freaking NGUI layer. Yep. That was a bane in my existence earlier today. Something I was doing. I was like, no. Okay, so I'm going to create a kind of just a base game view. Base game. And let's save that. And I'll add that to my game object. If I had to moved it. Oh, no, you didn't. Right there. So I'm adding that view to my selection. And when this initializes, I want it to like have my enemies bound, right? So I'm not going to start with enemies, but I'm going to add enemies as the game starts. So in the container field, I'm going to drag my enemies container here. So that's how they're going to populate into the scene. Initializing view model, score with 0, and I don't have a player yet, so I definitely need one of those. So let's go create a player. So my player view, I'm going to add to scene. Should have had that selected. I guess that's a good lesson right there. Hold on, delete that. So NGUI has this weird thing that it does because of its scale, and if you just add an object to the scene outside of it, and I click on it, it scales 1:1:1. But since I modified my UI root, and its scale is so small, if I was to drag this inside of my game, which is on my NGUI layer, you're going to notice that the scale of it is like totally out of whack. So this little S thing resets that. Also want to make sure it's on the NGUI layer. And let's see what else. So now we have a player, and I'm just going to call this player instead of player view. And I'm going to drag that into my player. So it gets initialized when the game initializes. And my score is going to be set to 0. That's good. let's see what else. Now, I guess I can put the graphic on here. So let's go see what my graphic's going to be. So let's see here. It's an ugly color. So change my main camera to black. And feel free to talk while I'm doing this.
Oh,
like,
okay.
No, man, you're on the hot
everybody's
spot.
watching
You're in
me.
the hot- yeah, that's right. You're in the hot
This is going to be posted online too, so the people that couldn't make it can always go back and watch.
That's good.
And I've got a couple questions to answer. I'll probably just answer those questions and post it.
So inside of player, that's what I was doing. Okay, so NGUI create a sprite, and let's see, what do we want? This guy to be my sprite? No. Oh, the Twitter bird could be my.
There you
My-
go. Do a Twitter bird. I like that.
Yeah, Twitter bird's gonna be my sprite. So that's gonna be my player.
We can sell this to Twitter afterwards.
And let's make this guy bigger because he's so tiny on my screen. Let's see, we'll do him like 512 by 512. Yeah, so there's our 30. I feel like this screen is all out of proportion. I don't believe it. I believe it. New version of NGUI has a way to turn these things off. I don't know if you guys realize that, but they get super annoying, and so you can turn off the move gizmo so that all you have to do player bird. So all you have to do is now you can just move it freely.
Oh, that's
Or
cool.
Yeah, or you could go options, handles. You could turn off the handles and just turn on the other one. I don't know what it's called. What is it? The gizmo?
No, I was laughing at the siren in the
That's
background.
what I'm laughing at too. What have you been up to over there, Marco?
They're coming after me.
I know.
Twitter knows you're making a Twitter game.
That's right.
I'm using their Twitter bird.
How dare you?
How dare I? Okay, so for that, then I also am going to want to create some sort of. I'm going to create some arrows. So my bird comes fully armed with arrows. That sounds good. So create empty child, and we're going to call these ammo. And I'm just going to make a template one real quick. So much for me only having 40 minutes. There's no way I'm going to be able to do this in the short amount of time that I have. But what am I doing? Create sprite. Okay, so
Whatever, dude. uFrame's drag and drop.
yeah, let's see.
Kidding.
It is.
Bad joke.
It was a bad joke. Terrible. Okay, so that was good. I don't know why my scale is off. It seems so off right now. That's right. Adjust by DPI, maybe? That was it. No? Just really tiny for some reason. Teeny tiny jazz hands. Alright. Arrow. And can make that 512, 512. maybe smaller, like 256. And we'll move this over here. Hope you guys aren't getting too bored. This is gonna take me forever.
While you're doing some of this, so you can just kind of run with it. I'm gonna
Yeah.
answer some questions that were submitted on here.
Turn on.
I know next week, Mike Roblowski, I don't know if I can pronounce his name, is going to present what he learned. I went back and forth a lot with him on various concepts of uFrame, so I'm curious to see more about that. But all right, so one of the questions was, whoa.
Whoa.
Is my screen still sharing? Can you guys see my screen at all?
Oh yeah, there we go. I can see it now.
What are the differences between MVC, MVVM, and MVCVM? And basically, one of the key things about MVCVM, and people tend to think that it's directly related with MVC since it has MVC in it, but that was just a poor acronym naming choice. It was actually originally called MVVMC because it really had more to do with MVVM with an added controller. But that controller isn't the same type of controller that's necessarily an MVC. The controller in uFrame or MVCVM, and I hate acronyms. I sound like a... Anyways, the controller in uFrame is more or less kind of a data state controller. And that data state controller is more or less modifying the data state of an element in your game, rather than directly controlling receiving input or anything like that. It's literally, okay, for instance, I have, let's see here, what's a good example? Okay, say this forge plate. This element is literally these little plates that are laying here in my game. So what I want is the current state of that forge plate, which is off, on, or falling. So I'm never gonna, in my view, set any of these states directly. My view is gonna be more reactive. But in this controller with these commands, that's what's gonna bind to or wait for to be called. And these are what's gonna actually modify this forge plate state into these off, on, and falling states. And the reason why this is useful, I mean, because at first glance, you're going to see the model and see state right here, and in your view, you're going to be like, why can't I just set it directly in my view? Well, it does seem simpler, but whenever you have commands that do that, you've kind of delegated that control over to the controller. And as your game moves along a little bit farther, inside of these commands, you're probably going to do a lot more with when that happens than when you first initially set up your game. For instance, like a cube on and off, I could then keep track of how many cubes or plates they've landed on, and even add the logic to, maybe throw in an achievement when they've landed on, 5,000 cubes. This is a simple example, and there may not be a million things you can do with that, but you have the option there. Does that make sense to you guys so far?
Yeah. Yeah, it makes sense, yeah. To me.
That's kind of the key thing behind the commands and why you want to give that control to ForgePlay, to the controller, because it's going to modify any of the state information about it. But as far as, I guess that kind of sums up what's different about MVC and MVVM.
Hmm.
So really, uFrame is really MVVM. It just adds the controller there to keep the logic of modifying that element or view model, if you will.
Hmm.
So I can extend upon that without having to derive from the view model. Because usually in games, you're going to be doing a lot of that. And for instance, say I have this flip cube game right here, and in the if I put everything in the view model, it's going to be harder to swap out those commands and what happens in those commands. So if I wanted a networked flip cube game, I could simply just go create a new networked flip cube game controller that derives off flip cube game controller and process any kind of network events inside of those commands.
Yeah, nice.
So that's kind of why it's there. I mean, you definitely don't have to use controllers if you prefer more of a direct MVVM approach. There's nothing that's saying that you can't do that, but you're definitely going to be following uFrame and kind of how the tools were designed if you do utilize that. So that takes care of that question. And maybe you guys can help me here. Let me open up my notepad. And gosh. Got a random. Okay. Can anybody tell me what this means? Custom instantiating of bound view models with arguments with uFrame. Oh, I think I know what that means. And I think I've got an example for it right here. Let's see. Oh, I'm not doing any instantiating on this game. But, alright, anyways. What's something I could instantiate? Let's go into this guy. Flip cube level controller. Not the controller, I'm going to go into the view. So say we have this collection, this flip cube level, and it has a collection of these plates. Since Forge Plate has many derived types, by default the bindings aren't going to know which one to instantiate unless you name these specifically. Like if I have a prefab called teleporter plate, switch plate, or death plate, as all these are inherited here, it won't know which one to instantiate. So I tend to try to follow how everything works, which is by default view resolution. So if I instantiate a view with just the view model, so say for instance I create var view model equals new, and this is strictly just an example, dissolve plate view model, and I do instantiate view, and I literally just pass in the view model. What it does is take the type name, take off view model, and it's going to look for a prefab inside of your resources folder called dissolve plate. So by default in the bindings that's generated for you, so if I have this flip cube level view with the plates collection, whatever view model I add to this, whether that's a teleporter plate, switch plate, death plate, that's how it's going to do it by default. It's going to look for a prefab with that name. But if I wanted this to be more hard-coded, I can always override create plates view and see how it already passes me the view model. Can you guys see that?
Mm-hmm.
I can then do if forge plate is dissolve plate view model, that I could return instantiate view forge plate.
No. What the hell am I doing?
I could specify a custom prefab. So say for instance it was in resources slash plates slash forge plates slash dissolve. So now in my view, I hate compiling. Oh, you're going so fast.
No.
So in this view, I double click on it, the forge level view, and I turn the plates binding on with the scene first off. Now in one of my controllers, if I add to this plates collection, this code will get executed. So that's one way I could customize the way instantiate view works, or how a binding works with various different types of view models. I think that's most of the questions for now. Can answer more next week or something. So, where's my Hangouts? Where's the... So, Marco, we're back to you.
Yeah. I forgot how to do something, so I'm looking it up.
Small suggestion, Micah. So that Unity VS, maybe you could, when you release the package, if you could maybe zip that up for like Mac users and stuff like that, because I don't use a, well, I use a PC also, but
I've got a fix for that. I have it disabled
okay, cool.
by default.
Awesome, great, yeah.
I made that change. I'm not sure if that's in the newest release version, but I have made that change. So any subsequent releases will definitely have that disabled.
Good, awesome.
And I kind of feel like I'm just rambling right now. It's really hard to answer questions without someone here who can drive the question to be a little bit more specific.
Okay, yeah. So let me try to get more specific. I guess I'm looking at your screen right now, Mike. I don't have on this computer, just my portable one. On the Element, the question I had was regarding how to use the certain. If you go to the Element window on your yeah, there you go, awesome. And on the little behaviors, if you hit plus on those things, I notice on the right the inspector. Yeah, if you hit plus, yeah, I think it should. Yeah, that's right. Okay, so that's what I was a little confused over on the right side there. The inspector changed a little bit. I think there was radio dialog or radio buttons on the left side of it. I wasn't sure kind of how to use that.
Oh, this. Yeah. It's once you click on it the first time, then this guy?
Yeah. I was kind of wondering what...
You know what? This would actually be a good thing to talk about is behaviors. It's the somewhat neglected part of uFrame that a lot of people ask about that I just haven't had the time to go in and fully document yet.
Awesome. Okay.
But it's really a very, very powerful feature of uFrame.
Good.
So I'm sure everyone is familiar with Playmaker actions, right? Awesome.
Mhm.
So nobody's familiar with Playmaker actions? Looks like everybody's muted.
I don't. I haven't used Playmaker much.
Yeah, I don't use Playmaker either. Apparently, we all like typing, I guess. Code.
Okay, well, I think most people that might watch this are familiar with it. All right,
Okay.
so the actions. Well, let's back up here.
Okay.
Okay, these triggers, which I can directly create a behavior for any of these views. So it's kind of attached to the element. So this flip cube level, you can see active forge cube changed,
Yeah.
forge cube changed. I can even wire into whenever these commands is executed. And this is a great thing for people who are not developers per se,
Yeah.
because a developer can go in and they have everything fleshed out, all of that's good to go, but a designer wants to go in and add effects and sound and all that kind of stuff, and that's where uFrame really comes into play.
I see.
So, or uBehavior, excuse me. So, say for instance, this forge cube changed. Actually, hello? Hey, Tyne. I need to mute that for a second. All right, sorry.
No problem.
The where is this? Let's find a good one. Okay, cube on executed. Say I'm a designer. This game's fledged out, and my task is to go in and add the effects and all of that for this game. So what I'm going to do is go into the elements and create various things for I'm going to create a behavior for each view that I'm going to work with. So for instance, let's actually create one for a plate instead. This makes more sense. So I want to add an effect when something hits these plates. Doesn't matter what it is, just whenever something hits it. So I've got this plate behavior right here. I've added this basic plate view behavior. And I can say cube on executed. I'm going to add an action. And there's some specific things. I could execute another command or whatever. But I'm going to, let's say, log. Do a console log. So right here, I'm just going to say cube on. So now when I run, that's awesome. I might want to add that to the, where's my, I've got to add that to a plate. So I'm going to click on my basic plate, go back to this guy. So I need my UV Explorer. That's kind of what this UV Explorer is. Whatever I create in here will show up here.
Okay.
And then, so my basic plate here is that view, basic plate view. And I want to add that behavior to it. So basic plate view. So here's my U behavior. I'm basically creating a standard mono behavior, if you will.
Okay.
With this guy. So let me hit apply. And assuming I really didn't screw something up while doing things here, and it looks like I did. I have no idea what I just messed up. It's perfect. Oh, scene first. I took it off when I was showing something. Oh, you know what it is? I added that dissolve plate code. Where did I do that? Oh no. In the last question I was answering, I added some code. And I'm trying to remember where I did that. Oh yeah. Let's go back here to this guy. Oops, it's in the view. No, in the view. I'm crazy. Okay, yeah, this code. This is not right. It was trying to create dissolve plates for everything. Sorry if it's all over the place here. I'm trying to get this back to normal. Okay, so now you can see the cube on happening there. So if I move around, let's do collapse. And this master audio thing is in my own code, so ignore that.
Okay.
So you can see the cube on right there.
Yeah.
That's from that behavior.
Okay.
I know that's a very all over the place presentation of it, but essentially all I did was added the behavior,
Yeah.
went to this view, wrong thing. Yeah,
Yeah, there
added the
you go.
behavior, went to this view, clicked on my UV Explorer window, added the behavior to it,
Yeah.
and that's it.
Okay. All right.
And then I can just kind of work with my element, or I can add, say, we wanted to have it to where you could click on it. So I'm going to do on mouse down. You can also add these types of triggers. So mouse down trigger. I'm going to do a execute command, and this is specific to uFrame. And I can choose whatever command that belongs to this behavior, which would be cube on. So whatever I've specified here, I can choose. So now, whenever I click on something, it's going to execute the cube on command. So let's find one in our scene. Call it this guy right here in the corner. Run it. And you can see the cube on is executing
Okay, cool.
many times for some reason. I don't know why. Must be doing something funny. That's neither here nor there. I think you kind of get the idea of it. I'm so unprepared. I'm going to delete this guy. I don't know what he's doing. And let's go back here. What we really want to look at is just the inspector. Off. On. It's probably something with my box collider and the on mouse down trigger. Anyways, that's basically how behaviors works. You can just build simple little components, throw effects. I could do master audio, play sound, that type of thing.
Good.
And that's honestly, I wouldn't do like
Great.
a whole
Okay.
lot in here. Like
Yeah.
right here, just master audio, play sound.
Yeah.
I could generate an action for it. So Marco,
Yeah,
how's it coming over there?
it's coming along good. So right now I'm writing some code to uh, handle moving my awesome little bird around. That's not how you write code. But, so what I've done here, let me just do a rundown real quick of some things that I set up. So I had made a bird, our little Twitter bird. Um, I made a player view. So then my diagram under player. Hello, hello. It's compiling. Why are you compiling? They're just gonna kill me. Any minute now. I'm having total system failure at the moment. It's only because you asked me to show something, so as soon as you said that, my computer's like, no. Why is Unity still compiling? It's not even not responding, it's just taking forever to compile. Wow, that took a really long time. I don't know why. So anyways, I created a player view. I added that player view to my player by right-clicking, and I said add to selection. And so that created my player view. Then one thing since last time you guys looked, I added this other element called ammo, which are going to be my arrows. And I created a game object to hold those arrows, and I created an arrow, and I put an arrow view on that arrow, and that's how I'm going to be able to instantiate arrows. No, I clicked that. Why did I click that? Okay. And let's look at some code that I did. So in my player controller, another thing I added was I added a shoot method. And when I shoot, I'm just going to add some arrows to my arrows collection. So I'm going to add one arrow view model. When that gets created, so when an arrow is added, I'm going to set the position of the arrow so it starts wherever I'm at. And this is an NGUI trick. So again, because when something is instantly instantiated, it's going to go into the top level here, but we want it to go underneath the NGUI hierarchy. So when you're dealing with NGUI stuff, it has that scale bug. What happened to all my stuff? Okay, it has the scale bug, so I have to reset the scale back to 1. So that's done. This says, hey, look for an arrow prefab, and that would be found in a resources folder. I put it under prefabs resources. I'm going a little fast, so if anybody has questions, to shout out and say why. So I overrode the create arrows view so that I could specifically specify what type of prefab. One really cool thing about this is that if you had different ammo types, you could make this be based on an enum. very similar to how our game Pushing the Envelope uh, creates several different type of enemies. Um, Here's a little example. Enemies added. So here it's based on the type of enemy that this particular enemy is. So in the controller, when I'm adding the enemy, I can add a specific type. So if you use inheritance and you have several different type of enemies that you're inheriting from, you can instantiate that specific type of enemy simply by passing the type here. And when you add it in your controller, you would be adding an instance of that view model versus your like base enemy view model. Hope that made sense. Did I say that right, Micah?
Yeah, I mean that's actually the one question I was trying to answer, but you kind of summed it up better than I did. I've been at work all day. My brain is like absolutely fried.
Scrambled eggs.
It's completely scrambled eggs right now. But yeah, that's definitely one of the questions, and you answered it very nicely. So
Thanks. So then I have just some input handling here in my player view because that's on my actual bird game object. So if I push play, and I should be able to just move my bird around. Yay! It's working. Okay, so I should be able to dodge the enemies when they come out. And so I wanted to make it so that I could shoot, right? So that's what I was in the middle of doing right now, was adding, if I hit the space bar, then I want to execute shoot. And what execute shoot is going to do is instantiate an arrow, and that will probably work. So if I just push play, and of course I want to show you something, so it's going to take forever to compile. Okay, so if I push, oh, that did not work. Hey, why isn't it working? Did I not activate bindings? Maybe. No, I bound it.
are you adding to the collection?
I was adding to this collection. I thought I was. Player controller, shoot, player arrows, add new view model. Okay, no, I shouldn't do it that way, right? I should do it.
Arrow controller dot create.
Yeah, that's fine.
I mean, technically that still shouldn't matter,
Shouldn't.
but
Create ammo. Yeah. And then that should have worked. Eeny, meeny, miny, came up. Pilot.
what does your arrow prefab look like as well?
Yeah, I was going to ask about how you dealt with the prefab on the arrow.
So if I drag my arrow up here, I have just a sprite, and I have arrow view on here.
Yeah.
So that's really all I need to have on there to be able to determine.
What about player? Is your container set up right for the ammo?
Yeah, that's what I thought it was. It's right there.
Yeah, that's right.
That's right. So let's try it again. Maybe it was just the way I was doing that. creating. No, it's not.
Keep it running and look at your. Click on your player.
Yeah, there's nothing in my ammo.
I know. I mean, click on player.
Yeah,
Yeah. And arrows.
it is empty.
Nothing's showing up. Is player view? That's a single instance.
Yeah, players in single instance. Collection. This is a multi-instance, so that should be right. That should be working. And oops. Let's see. Shoot. Well, let's see if this is even happening, right? So.
I'm guessing it's not.
Yeah. Hello. Oh. Did you take that out, by the way? I'm just curious.
Yeah.
Why did you take that out? I'm just curious.
Because it's a data state controller, so it really shouldn't be accessing much from the Unity Engine controller, and I'm just trying to reinforce that by removing it. If you have to add it for like a vector 3 or something like that, that makes sense. But just by default, I felt like it should be off there. Because honestly, your data state controller and your view models should be portable. You should be able to throw those in a web project somewhere and execute game logic. And the reason I stress that so much is because when we get into networking and start really fledging that out for uFrame, some of the very enterprisey type stuff, when you can throw that controller on a server somewhere, you can actually have that server drive more of the data state changes. I can execute, say, execute this command, and then that controller can actually run that on the server and notify all of the clients that that command has happened. So the server becomes the single source of truth.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. I was just, yeah.
That's the main idea behind controllers, just for anybody watching.
Here's a good question, and I've had this debate with a couple of my guys. Should you be putting more of your code in the model than in your controller when using
Well, the model example of that, the code I would put in a model is something that is a calculated value that already exists on the model. For instance, say you had a element with the first and last name.
Right.
But I'm probably going to use their full name very often. So I would go on there and create a property called full name, and go ahead and in the getter of the property add, first name plus space plus last name.
Right.
So I could just access that in there. That's more of kind of like a view logic rather than having to concatenate that everywhere I want to use it. Or if I wanted to add any properties that I specifically didn't want anything to bind to. But again, those are just properties.
That makes sense.
I mean, uFrame is MVVM, so adding code into a view model isn't wrong. The controller is just there to add, an easy way to combine a group of commands that works on a view model.
Right. Yeah, I mean that's kind of the architecture question that my team and I were kind of going back and forth on how we want to handle that, because you're if you read up on docs, this typical MVC approach is to put your execution code in the model itself, and then from the controller you're calling the code that's in your model.
Oh,
Right.
you're talking about a model, not the view model. Okay, that's a good point. The view model is not the model, and the difference between that is the view model is what the data that is required by the view to properly display the information that it needs. The model is the underlying, uh, usually the source of data. It could either be in a database, more of an entity, and you
Mm-hmm.
might have some business logic that runs on that model.
Mm-hmm.
So, for instance, if I had uh, a player model, and that's literally something I'm storing it verbatim in the database or serializing it as JSON, you could add, commands in there to give the player so and so achievement. You could actually have logic in there as well to do that. And the controller is just the kind of the mediator between that model and the view model. It's saying, okay, here's my model class. I'm going to take the information and populate the view model uh, and give it the right data. So your view model can actually grow
Mm-hmm.
and have different data from different entity types. So say, for instance, add a window with a view model of the player as well as all of its achievements, all that stuff. That view model is not going to represent exactly how you're storing that in the database. So you might have to call, two different methods to pull that data back on in your controller, and then you morph that data into the view model to properly display it, because that's what your view is bound to.
Right.
It gives you that extra level of separation from your view to your data, if that makes sense to you guys. And you honestly can't go wrong looking at articles online for MVVM, because that's really what uFrame is, and the controller is just an additional feature. I actually highly recommend it. There's a lot of great articles on MVVM that completely
Cool.
explain the architecture
Yeah.
a lot better than I can.
I have no idea why this isn't getting called. My
The shoot's not getting called?
Yeah, the shoot's not getting called, but
Go to your player view.
my player view I said execute shoot, that's happening because I get this message. So execute shoot is being called. So,
Go. Do you have initialized view model on your player view? Is that
no, I do not.
Yeah, you need that for
Yeah,
you 1.26.
that was what my problem was.
Sorry, I should have caught that a long time ago.
No, I should have caught that too. That's what. Yep, there's my arrow. Facing the wrong direction, I see. Why? Arrow facing the wrong direction. Do I not? The hell?
You just added an arrow to an arrow. Oh, never mind.
No, it's not.
It's
It's not keeping my prefab position, but that's okay. Um, that is what this is for. So not only do I have to set the position here, I also need to rotate it as soon as I'm done with this. I'm talking to Eric right here.
Are you going to eat with him?
No, I'm just visiting him at Red 5.
Okay.
I don't know. We might go grab a bite to eat.
Okay, well, then I'm just going to eat.
Okay. Sounds good. What was he doing? Euler. Euler angles. Set my Euler angles view. Vector 3. And 0, 0, minus 180.
And while you're doing that, I just want to mention and apologize that everything's so unorganized. I honestly had no idea who would show up. So next week we'll definitely have more of an organized meeting, and I'll probably send out something that'll explain kind of what we'll go over uh, with enough time for people to actually connect. But again, this is our first time doing this, so it's kind of a learning experience for us.
That's no problem. It's okay.
There. Now it should instantiate the right direction at least. And
But yeah, we're just hanging out anyways. Just hanging out. Sorry, Mark.
that's okay. I wasn't saying anything important. Let's make this okay. So now it's going the right way. So now I want them to move. So I can do that inside of the arrow view, and I can just say void update. Just dot transform dot local position plus equals vector 3 dot right plus speed plus time dot delta time. And we'll just make a speed attribute. Speed. Float speed. Let's go 5F. Should be fine.
And this actually brings up a good point here that notice you're putting the speed on the arrow view. And one of the ways you can kind of determine whether that value should be on the element itself or on the view is honestly if you have a variable like speed, you want to decide, hey, do I need that speed value to determine whether or not it's going to change the state of some other item in your elements. So if he reached a speed of 500 and you say, okay, that's the end all, stop the game, you would want to put that speed inside of your element. And then your update method, calculate the speed each frame or as you need to. But in this case, we made the determination, or Marco did, that okay, the speed is not going to have any logical outcome on any state of the game. It's literally just a visual property that's happening inside the game. So when that happens, you just want to throw it into your view or some other component that makes it move around. It doesn't necessarily have to connect to the controllers and the elements and the logic of how those work.
My arrow did not move. Come on, arrow. Move. Why aren't you moving? In GUI, 180. It says you're moving. He's moving. Oh, yeah. Mock snail speed, baby.
Oh, okay. I was like, what is going on?
So I probably need to boost that up to like 50. Good.
There we go.
200. 500. 1,000.
And granted, this is because you're using NGUI.
Yeah. No, it's because
You're doing local position.
I'm not doing robust calculations for my speed and everything. I'm just winging it. there's a much better way to move objects than that. But I'm just trying to be simple about it. Let's see. Let's go to 2000. That seems like a nice speed. What the heck?
You set it in there, but it's not going to change the value in your prefab because
Yep,
it's
because
already done it.
I forgot to set my speed to. There we go. You are correct, sir.
I do that sometimes.
All right. So now, just for the, let's get some enemies, right? So, holy cow. Like making a mini game here in like a couple hours. What was I doing? Enemies. Okay, enemies. Oh, I do have an enemy view. Good. Okay, so enemies. Where's my enemy? My enemy is a Scully. So let's see if I need to. Now he looks pretty good. So I'm going to delete him, and we're going to say, oh, no, that's why I did it. So put my Scully in here, and let's see where I want him to spawn. So my Scully guy, I want him to spawn out here somewhere. So let's do from 2600, that's a good one, to 1850. Was it? I don't even remember that. What did I say, 2200? 2800. So what I'm doing now is just making it so that it'll spawn this guy out here between a range and what is this, 5500 X. Right. So I'm going to come over to my code. Whoa. I don't have that many things open. And first thing I want to do is go to my base game view. So this is going to handle like spawning my enemies. So, public override again game. Wait, public again void. L2 learn how to write code, right? Again game. And why am I doing this in the view? Come on. Come on, son. That's probably why I was all in confusion. So I'm going to call this for my initialize, but after, I'm going to wait like 2 seconds. return new. Hello.
Unity engine namespace.
Oh, so irritated that you took that out. You have good reason for it, but I still am irritated. Eight. Flipped 3F. Okay. Oh, yeah, 2 seconds. And then I'm going to have spawn void spawn these. Actually, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to do in game. I'm not even going to do that here. I'm just going to say this is so private and then I don't like that. No, here level. We'll start at level 1.
I would actually put that on the element, but you can stick with that for now.
Normally it would be on the element, yes. Oh, that sucks. No, nothing I'm doing. Just got the timeshare for our Casual Connect. Doesn't have a kitchen. All right. So I'm going to say start coroutine, spawn enemies. So it's going to do that every 2 seconds. We're going to level plus plus, and we're going to what am I doing?
Add to the collection.
Where is
Create enemy.
Yeah, where did I put? Oh, it is. Yeah. So
Base hangout game.
I don't know what I'm doing.
Base hangout game.
Let me think.
Dot enemies. Dot
Thank you.
add.
I know.
Controller.
I got it. Yeah. All right. So I'm creating an enemy every 2 seconds, but for I equals 0, no, int I equals 0, less than level plus plus. So we're going to create a new enemy for each level. So we have some sort of like progression going on. And in the base game view, I'm going to say public override, create enemy view, and public override enemies added. So here I want to determine what type of enemy to spawn. So initiate view. I called him Scully. And I want to set his location. So random. Wait, we want int, int. No, I want to float. Float random x. No, random y. Yeah. Equals random dot. Right. Hello. Where's? How come I don't have that?
Oh, it collides with the system namespace.
Between, what did I say? So between 2800 and no, minus 1850 and 2800. That's going to be my random y. Float. Well, I guess I can just put that up here. Float. Float x equals 500. So I'm going to say, what was I doing? Enemy dot me dot transform dot local position equals new vector 3. X is x, y is random y, z is 0, and enemy dot transform dot.
So while you're doing this, I'm gonna explain like something real quick.
Sure.
One of the reasons why it's good that he's separating out where he's setting the local position, the local scale, and all of that, and the controller is because once he sets this view and already has worked out the logic for the local position and all that, when it comes time to go tweak the game, it becomes more of just modifying the controller. So whenever I change those properties and move things around in the way that it works, it's not going to affect anything visually because this view is just reacting to the data changing. And granted, this example is fairly simple, but especially in more complex games, this becomes like almost a necessity. Having built larger games and stuff like that, anytime I would change something, there would be hundreds of circular dependencies everywhere. My game logic was in this component, it was in another component. They connected to each other to communicate, and it became really hard to understand and really required anyone throwing components on game objects or creating anything to really understand how things worked internally. And that's what uFrame is really good at, is pulling that specific stuff for the game logic out of it. So essentially what we could do here is take that base game controller and we could create a whole different game mode without ever having to write this transform position or any of that stuff. We could say, okay, this time it's going to instantiate the enemy every 5 seconds, and then every 10 seconds it's going to increase their speed or increase their
Hey.
state. Nice.
Well, I created my very own bug. We did have a enemy go, but the scoring needs to be deleted after I set. Whoa, what's going on? Yeah. Delete him and base game controller. Circle routines, spawn enemies, spawn enemies. Oh, it only does it once. Dirt, 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 dirt. Let's do this for So we should see an enemy come out, 2 enemies come out, 3 enemies come out, 4 enemies, 5 enemies. Woo! Now I didn't rotate. I didn't modify the X. So so that's why they're all stacked in the same line.
It's starting to look like Flappy Bird skulls in Twitter edition.
Yeah, right? Let me modify the X real quick. We'll just do a quick random range on that. Between base game view, let's do between float and X equals unity engine dot random dot range. Let's do 5,500 to 6,000. Nah, here. Like to 5850. And we'll do X, and I can get rid of this. Yes, received. So now they should start coming out in a little bit more of a stagger. Yeah, that wasn't a very good stagger. Let's give it a little more stagger. 6,500.
Probably actually be good to create like a Flappy Bird tutorial series.
Yeah, I mean, well, look at it. I mean, I pretty much put this together in just a little bit of time, and you could put a background, a scrolling background behind it, and repeating scrolling background behind it, and you could put a spaceship. Why aren't my arrows spawning where I'm at? Yeah, that stagger's a little better. Not terrifically better, but yeah. Whoa.
So are the arrows, like when you instantiate the arrow, is that like
Yeah, I didn't.
doing
Yeah.
it by the position?
Yeah, it should be by my position. Player view, the arrow, this dot, local position. It's not supposed to be bird, not grid. Bird, bird. That's probably what it was.
You should probably actually just do position instead of local position.
No,
You should probably actually.
not when you're using NGUI. So with NGUI,
But it's still going to match the position.
huh?
It still should match the position.
I've been having
Not when you're moving it, but when you're actually setting it, it'll transform the local position to that position.
I mean, we can try it, but I had problems in pushing the envelope with that. That was odd. Well, let me set it to the position. Maybe I have it backwards. Because position is world position. And
Oh, you need to set the arrows to position and not local position. Yeah.
to my.
Nope. Forget about local position. Just position.
I don't like it because I'm moving the local position. I'm not moving the position of the object.
Yeah, but this is initially. So initially, it's gonna like transform it.
If you're right, I'm still not saying you're right.
If I,
Yeah,
yeah.
you are not wrong.
I'm really glad I was right.
And there you have it. I mean, a little bit of collision code. Um, now you have, and
You cut out.
you can pretty much see how this could be an effective game. That spawning is just not working for me. I'm just going to fix that real quick, and that'll be all I'm going to cover for this particular one. The spawner is here. Why is it not? I mean, let me go. Some crazy range, right? It's just like, I mean, since I'm not putting any seed in there, it's just like not getting a good variance. So yeah, that looks better. Yeah, that looks much better.
You gotta add the collision code, man.
I can't.
I'm just kidding.
This project can, and
You're cutting up.
um, what I'm gonna have to do is swap out the graphics for a custom atlas, though. But that way you can have the code. That is a lot of skulls. Also notice I'm not destroying them, so this is just
It's overloaded with skulls.
So did anybody have any questions? No?
No, not bad for a 30-minute game jam.
Yeah.
With uFrame, it's cool.
Yeah. I mean, Flappy Birds in 30 minutes
I
by
know.
Marco Williams.
Yeah, next week we'll probably just like pick a small game like that and just start with that and go more over the thought process behind everything and kind of more of the workflow. And people can ask questions along the way rather than just randomly deciding what to do on the spot.
Yeah, I mean, if we plan it out a little better,
Yeah.
I could accomplish a lot more, and um, and maybe we could, start on something, and then the following week we could do more of that project. Like, I was starting this, then next week we can continue it where we left off until it kind of runs a full cycle, and a little mini game was created out of it, and then you can post that game up on the uFrame site for people to download as an example of how to build a game with uFrame. And then they kind of have these hangout sessions to kind of go along with it. I'd be okay with that.
Yeah, that'd be cool. So I'm assuming like Thursday, 8 o'clock. I'm not sure if that's a great time. Is there a better time for you guys that are on here that would fit better? Or do you think there would be a time that would fit most people's schedules better?
The West Coast for me, it's pretty good. So
Yeah, this is pretty good for me, except for I had made plans and then I forgot. And I was like, shit. So,
This is just a little bit too early for me. An hour later would be, starting about 9 would be perfect on the EST.
Okay, who is that talking?
Oh, that's Dosetsu, the
Oh,
snow.
okay, right on.
Also,
So 9 o'clock.
be sure to post the video link when it's posted after to people in case they're interested in seeing the hangout or something like that too. That helped too. So I'm gonna share this with somebody else on my team too. So
Okay, right on.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's,
and you can go into and apologize for the rabbit trails throughout it, but
all right.
you mentioned earlier that you were going to go into you were going to do sort of a process, not a lecture, but you were going to explain the whole process of how you think when you're creating stuff. I'd be really interested to hear that because uFrame is really about process and
absolutely.
how to do something, how to create something from not necessarily like the mini game, but just the process of creating a controller and an element and sort of tying all that stuff together. That'd be really great.
Yeah, I can definitely talk about that. Let me share my screen here. And I'm going to take a second just to grab my thoughts together and figure out how I want to demonstrate that. I'll probably just do something on this game I've actually been working on. And because it's unfinished, I'll just walk you through like how I actually go in and extend this with something and the thought. So let's see here. One of the things. Okay. There's this thing called a death plate in this game.
Hey, before you jump into that, I actually have to take off. It was nice meeting all of you guys, and I hope you guys got something out of whatever I did. And I will catch you guys next time.
All right, cool. Thanks, Mark.
later, Marco.
Thank you, Marco.
All right, so let's see here. So we're going to implement this death plate. When you land on it, it's literally going to set the state, or it's basically just going to end the game. And we'll say whenever you land on it, standing up. So just to give you a little bit more background of this game, the general idea is to flip your way through all the way to the end here. To where you can land in this little goal area, and then you complete that level. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And then there's different plates. They do different things, and as things get harder, the plates, the levels become much larger, and you get introduced new plates. So one of the plates is a death plate, and whenever I land on it, standing up like this, it should fail. So I can like go off the side here and it starts over. So whenever I land on that plate standing up, it's going to basically just start over. Just for very minimalistic example. So let me find my, so we're going to look at the element here. Okay, so my death plate view. I've already got a prefab for this death plate in my resources folder. Here it is. So if I drag this into the scene, there's nothing there. I'm missing a mesh. Let me find that mesh real quick. There you are. He's a very mean guy looking thing. Ew. I'll just drag a new one in here. Whatever. I'm gonna remove that.
Did you create the models for this as well?
I did not create the models for it. They were contracted out. I'm by no means a modeler. I can create a box.
But can you create a box to scale?
Nope. that goes beyond my skill set. Just kidding. Alright, so just for testing purposes, I'm going to make this really simple. He flips once. I'm going to take this guy out. My position got all weird. Reset position. And I want to move this guy around. I'm going to go ahead and drag him down into the plates. And this is my collection of plates. So if I look at the level view, I've got the plates here, which I'm saying scene first, meaning I'm designing the scene with this collection already in the scene. And I set my transform as the container. So let's find this guy. Alright, death plate. So this is basically nothing but a simple prefab, nothing rocket science, or no rocket science involved. And now we want to like kind of connect this to the element. So I'm just going to right click while I already have that selected and go to add to selection. So now I've got the view on here. So it's kind of bringing this to life. And let's, I'm going to go ahead and just make that a prefab, and I created in the wrong thing. Let's put that in my, just in my resources folder. And I've already got something named death plate, so I'll just override that guy. Okay, so now we have the prefab with the view. So I'm going to go ahead and say initialize view model and the state. So nothing fancy here. In my elements, you can see I've derived it from basic plate view. I went into base view, basic plate view, and I'm able to do that simply because my forge plate has this basic plate view already on it. And this has some very minimalistic, well, I wouldn't guess minimalistic, but has some basic events for when the cube is entered. It calls execute cube on command, cube left, execute cube off, and these are just happening from on collision enter and on collision exit. It kind of does some of the plumbing that all of the plates are going to use, and the main way it does that is via this state changing. So when I'm thinking about this, or thinking about the forge plate in this basic view, I know that all my other views are going to drive off this view. So I kind of look at the requirements of, okay, I have this teleporter plate, the switch plate, the death plate. What am I going to need to provide as a base functionality for all of these plates? And that's what I want to put in the basic plate view. So now on this death plate view, I can simply go into the view, override, and let's do cube entered. Actually, I don't need to do anything in the view. I've already got this in the controller, simply because the basic plate view calls execute cube on command and cube off. So I'm going to go into the death plate controller. I don't feel like waiting for it to compile. So alright, so my controller has the cube. And feel free to ask questions anywhere along the way. So
Makes sense.
I've got the forge plate here. So let's see if I've got a forge plate. A state equals. We'll just set it to falling That's not an equal equals. But actually, we only want it when it's standing up. So what we'll do here is I'm passing the cube view model along with it. So if we look at my basic plate view where I call this execute cube on command, the views pass along with it because in my on collision, there's a cool little trick I can do collision.gameObjectGetView, and this is a uFrame extension method. I can simply just say get view, put in the view name. This could be any type of cube if I wanted to. I make sure it's not null, and then I call cube leaving. And then I wait to make sure that it's rested and call cube left. And that's where I actually invoke the controller command via the execute method. You with me so far?
Yeah, I was looking at that that coroutine where you wait for rest. That's a nice little trick.
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, because the on collisions are kind of funny. I want to make sure that the cube is all the way down before I do anything or process that. Otherwise, the physics and everything will get way off. So I wanted just to provide that root functionality to any controller or any view. So in my view, I would do any kind of visual things, and in my controller, I'm going to worry about the state in here. So I'm going to do cube view model, and I have this rest state. And I'm going to make sure it's standing up. And each time I move on my cube controller, I modify this rest state with some basic calculations determining what the current state is and what it has to be on based on the move that they just made. So I'm just going to make sure it's standing up and set the state to falling. So now my death plate view is all wired up. I hit apply on that guy. And I think in my basic plate view, I have a falling. Where's my falling? Yes. I do, when the state changes, if the state is equal to falling, then I just turn the rigid body gravity on. And this is just a base functionality. Any view could technically fall, or any plate could fall. So it's kind of convenient for this death plate because it's not really much there. So now, I touched it. The box collider is probably too big. So let's take a look at that box collider. Where is it? Oh, there it is. So I'm just going to make this smaller. Oops. I can't see. I'm going to have to take that guy out for a second. So it'll still register on there. Okay. And turn this guy back on, hit apply. Well, it fell. But why did my cube not fall? Oh. So now in my death plate controller, I also need to set the state of this cube view model. So I'm going to do cube view model state equals falling off edge. So then my view knows what to do because it has, or let me just pull that up so you can see this whole flippy cube guy. Forge cube view. Let's see. There should be a state changed. Oh, I've got a base cube view. I forgot. Cube. Yeah, this guy. Cube view. There we go. So it has the whole state changed and checks for, let's see here, failing somewhere. State change. Maybe it doesn't check for that.
Not implemented.
Yeah, it may not be implemented yet, but the thing does fall. Execute fail. Dang it, it doesn't. Oh. Maybe it's dead. No, that's not it. Where did I do that? I know I'm doing it somewhere. Let me look at the cube controller. Fall through. Oh, let's execute. I'm just going to find usages. Oh, it's not on the cube view, it's on the Forge cube view, so I didn't have to go to the base class. So yeah, execute fall through is there basically when there's no gravity. So it should be checking for that state too. Oh, I guess it just does it there. Oh no, there it is. Bada bing, bada boom. Whenever a collision happens on this, if it's currently set to falling off edge, which this is actually a bad place for this. So I'm going to move this to the state. And I must not have made that virtual. State changed. Why can I not override that guy? I know I can. Oh, there it is. Haha. It was right underneath it. Wow, I'm blind. But it wants to set the... I don't remember what I was doing there, and I'm not going to try to figure it out right now.
Yeah, probably for the best.
So do you kind of get a little bit more of the workflow? I know this was a horrible example, and I'm just so unprepared for this.
No, that's great. It's really good. It's nice to see. I mean, that's kind of exactly how I'm doing things as well. So it's nice to, as a sort of a confirmation for the way I'm working, that I'm actually doing things in the right way.
Good.
So that's a great deal. Thank you.
No problem. Next week I'll answer that question as well, but I'll have more of a prepared example to show you, to give you even more detail about the workflow. But the biggest thing with the workflow is just knowing what to put where.
Right. Yeah.
And that's just determining, hey, is this a visual property or is this a property that needs to modify the state of the game?
Mm-hmm.
So anything that's going to modify the state of the game should be in here.
Right, in the controller.
Yes, in the controller or the elements view model. So kind of what I do whenever I'm developing any kind of element
Mm-hmm.
is I'm just going to create a new subsystem here just to show you.
Sure.
So say this element is called player. Initially what I'm going to do is go create a new enum and call it player, and then add a state property. And sometimes you might have more than one state. State enum pertaining to different areas of or information about the player. So I guess I need more of an example. You know what? Let me get more prepared before I walk you through this. Are you going to be around next week?
Yeah, I'll try to be.
Right on.
Well,
Yeah,
things go,
it's really hard for me to.
I mean, I understand all that stuff. What ends up happening with me is that I'm sort of trying to follow the tutorials and the prescribed methods and stuff, and then all suddenly I'll get into like my view model, and I'll be trying to access my controller, or I'll be trying to override a property, but it won't be there for whatever reason, and so I spend a lot of time sort of fighting with trying to get at stuff.
Trying to get what stuff?
Well, like just trying to get at, like trying to execute a command that I thought should be there, but wasn't or isn't, or I don't know. It's mostly my, and to be honest, I'm sort of speaking out the top of my head because I haven't been working on uFrame for a couple weeks now. I got sidetracked into an actual project, to a paid client project instead of one of my pet projects.
Okay, gotcha.
But yeah, I've been having tremendous success with it. It's excellent. It really helps with trying to sort of force yourself to structure your project properly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, hopefully without the extra time to set up a structure, which is usually why people outweigh, do we want to do this or not? But if you have something that kind of does that for you, it kind of makes it more of. It makes it make more sense, I guess.
And the payoff happens almost immediately because any project you work on, I mean, just from you start even that with that little example that Marcus, I think his name was doing.
Marco, yeah.
Marco was doing. You could see that immediately. It started to become. It started not bloating, but it started expanding rapidly, right?
Mm-hmm.
And even in a simple project, things expand so rapidly that things get out of control right away. Where like you're the situation where you're describing, where you have elements that are linking to other elements, and one controller needs access to another controller. So uFrame really helps to sort of maintain that structure and keep things organized.
Yeah, and it really tries to make sure you have access to things that you would most likely need. That's what I was showing you with where it generates the controllers and the view models, and whether it's a single instance or not, passing you in the view model to a parameter to your command, all that's right there. But the big thing is mostly that the whole shared controllers, where and if you're using Visual Studio, it's probably really helpful to look at that. Like, see this forge plate controller. I go look at this. You can see how it generated these properties in this designer code, and it figures those out based off of anything pointing to it or anything that it's pointing to. So most likely you're going to have exactly what you need to make the element come to life and communicate with the controllers that it needs to. From a data states perspective. But other than that, I see a lot of people getting confused, thinking that the controller is meant to, do a lot of calculations on positions and all that stuff. But it's really not. I mean, the view is literally just a mono behavior, and if you look at it that way, things will become a lot easier. Like the standard way that you're doing things. So say we built a game without uFrame. we're probably going to have tons of components and all of that kind of stuff. You know, any way you build it, really, you're going to have components, obviously. So think about you're doing it with Unity without uFrame, but when it comes to data and the state of the game, or the logic behind how the game is working, the game mode, if you will, that's the pieces of information that we're pulling out of all these random components and consolidating that into one easy to modify location, which is in the controllers. But everything else just stays in the view. And you build on to those and work with other views and stuff just like you would any other components.
Okay. Well, next week I'll start on that project again, and if I have any questions, I'll bring them next week.
Okay, cool. All right, appreciate it.
Great.
I'm gonna go eat some food and give my
Thank you
mind a
very
rest.
much for the hangout.
No problem.
Okay, great. See you next week.
Right on. Are you there, Michael Bard? Hello. Michael Bard. Michael. All right.